The European Union is giving 90 billion euros loan to Ukraine. Yes, guys, the European Parliament just gave the green light to this monumental loan. But what is it exactly for? And who is really paying for this 90 billion euro to Ukraine? Well, as a member of the European Parliament, I would like to answer these questions and let you know if I voted in favor or against and why. Well, first things first, the loan is split in two. 60 billion euros for defense and 30 billion for budget support. The Ukrainian government has reported that they need this money because otherwise they will run out of cash in April. But who pays for this loan? Well, these 90 billion are borrowed by the EU on the markets as a block. Basically, it is enjoying EU debt that is lent to Ukraine. And yes, this is a loan. So Ukrainians need to repay it to the EU, but under a very important condition. Ukraine will only be required to repay us if Russia pays war reparations, which is not something that is confirmed to this date. If Russia doesn't pay for war reparations, then the EU says that it can use other tools like immobilized Russian assets or EU budget to cover the losses. So yes, it's quite tricky condition that might blow up in our face. If Russia managed to not pay war reparations as part of a peace deal, we might see the EU taxpayers' money paying for the 90 billion euro loan. Another thing is how Ukraine can spend this money, because the EU has put some conditions and limits. The most important is that the weapons and other defense products bought by Ukraine with this money should mainly be from suppliers inside the EU and Ukraine. This is basically done so most of the money stay in European industries instead of flowing away to third countries. But of course, there is a big exception. Basically, if Ukraine urgently needs equipment that's not available in Europe, they will be allowed to buy it from somewhere else, mainly from the United States, of course. So now that you know what this loan is about, I need to tell you that I was one of the 140 members of the European Parliament that voted against it. The main and the deepest reason why I voted against it is because that I believe the EU has failed Ukraine. I say this because for the last 4 years, the EU completely refused to find a diplomatic solution to the war by talking to the Russians.
To me, it's the question, why talk to him? I mean, why? He's a war criminal.
Instead, the strategy has been to give as much money and weapons to Ukraine for as long as it takes, with the hope that the war can be won in the battleground and Russia is weakened. This strategy has clearly failed, as we see how slowly Russia is getting more Ukrainian territory, while hundreds of thousands of Russians and Ukrainians die. I completely oppose this strategy of prolonging the war and refusing to talk with the Russians. And it really makes me think of something that President Zelensky said back in 2022.
Я думаю, що у всіх різні інтереси. Причому у всіх у Заходу є ті, хто хоче, щоб ця війна йшла довго. Тому що це буде виснаження Росії, але ціною України, ціною життя людей. Це точно вигідно деяким країнам.
In my view, a diplomatic solution should have been achieved a long time ago. But the refusal of the EU to have peace talks with the aggressor, Russia, made this impossible. The EU should have been a peacemaker from the very beginning. But instead, we have now a person like Donald Trump deciding for the fate of our continent, with peace negotiations where EU has no say. In the meantime, we're left alone to pay for the weapons that will most likely be bought to the Americans, just because the European defense industry is not strong enough. So when I vote against this loan to Ukraine, I truly believe I'm not voting against Ukraine, but against the strategy that the EU has had for the last 4 years. I truly want to see Ukrainians free from the attacks of Russians and the control of the Americans. But this will only happen with a diplomatic solution as soon as possible. The more we wait, the worse our position will be. Anyways, I might be wrong in all of this. That's why I want to hear your thoughts, guys. Let us all know if I voted correctly or not in the comments below.